Welcome to the Tough Decisions Network for Entrepreneurs. I'm Dan Handford, and my wife, Dennae, and I interview successful people sharing stories behind tough decisions that they've had to make along their journey as an entrepreneur. Before we get started, let's hear from one of our sponsors. Have you ever thought about investing in real estate, but find yourself so busy that you don't have time for it? Do you have FOMO, which is the fear of missing out? At HandfordCapital.com, we help investors with passive real estate investments that project better returns than traditional investment vehicles such as the stock market. If you'd like to find out more about our passive real estate investments, visit HandfordCapital.com. That's HANDFORD Capital.com. We will jump on a call with you to discuss your investment goals and to see if our investments are a good fit for you. This advertisement is not to be construed as an offer or recommendation to buy or sell a security. Visit HandfordCapital.com.
Thank you for joining us for the Friday edition of our Tough Decisions podcast. As you know, Friday is the Dan and Dennae episode where we try to talk to you and talk to each other about some of the issues and the things that we're doing in our own businesses and sort of just give you some insight into what's going on and some of the decision-making processes that we go through. And as our audience knows, the last, I don't even know, maybe 4 weeks, 5 weeks, it's been just me. So today, I'm happy to report that Dan is still alive and well, and he's with me today. And so we're going to do the Friday with Dan and Dennae episode with both of us. So
you can tell she's not bitter at all.
No, not at all. Actually, I've been telling the people that have been listening that you've been in the middle of the deal that we've been trying to get done in Greenville, South Carolina. And so because I don't really have an active role in that, and my contribution to that, getting that deal done, has been taking care of this Friday podcast for you. So that's sort of the way I look at it.
Thank you very much for doing that. And
that's the way I had to look at it while I was doing the episode, so that I felt like I was doing something useful. But
yes, we actually closed on that property. It was a 130-unit apartment complex that we closed on last Friday. So that would be December 14th. And so this episode is on December 21st. This is the Friday before Christmas.
Right. And it's hard to believe, but we have 2 more Fridays in the year, and that's it. This Friday and one more. And we will be into 2019, which, 2018 has been quite the adventurous year for us, as I'm sure it's been for a lot of other people. But here we are at the end, and we're ready to launch into a new year.
For those of you who've been following us for some time, you know that Fridays is usually the day that we do this type of an episode. But next week, because Christmas is on a Tuesday, we are going to flip-flop our Friday episode for the Tuesday episode so that we can give you guys a very special Christmas episode. So be sure to tune in, pull up your iPhone when you're sitting there drinking some cocoa or coffee around the fire.
Or eggnog.
Oh, yes. A little bit of eggnog and pumpkin pie and some other leftovers from the Christmas gatherings and things like that. And just put your headphones in and earbuds and listen to the Christmas episode, because we have a very special edition for you on Christmas.
Right. So today we wanted to just talk a little bit, I guess, maybe if you'll allow us to sort of review our year and some of the decisions that we've made, and I guess really the evolution of our adventure into real estate. Back in February, when you came home from that weekend away and said, I think I'm going to step away from the offices, meaning our medical clinics. I think I probably had an aneurysm there for, about 30 minutes or so, but we didn't really know where you were going to go, but, you knew it was time to step away from that. And that's kind of something that I've had to learn about being married to a true entrepreneur, is that if you don't like where you're at, just hold on, because, in a few months or a few weeks or even a few days, things will change. You'll be doing something different. And so it was time for something different. And, you were ready to take that step.
Well, and I'll just kind of recap that story a little bit too, because, that story started by the year prior. Last year, 2017 is when we completed our goal of opening up the 5 medical clinics in South Carolina. So we started off with 1 and then expanded, and our goal was to open up 5 clinics in a 24-month period of time. And we ended up doing that early. We ended up doing that in 18 months. And that was definitely a learning process and a lot of work to do that and put that in place. And then, I'm a big, seminar person. So I like going to seminars and learning and continuing my personal development. And I also like reading, books around business and, not necessarily personal development books, but I guess you can kind of classify some business books as personal development. So I do like to be able to read and those kind of things. And so one of the things I did this past February is I went to an event, and it was the 10X Growth Con that where Grant Cardone was putting on an event in Las Vegas, Nevada. And I had purchased a ticket to that along with a friend of mine who we've been doing some masterminds, him and I together for several years, and decided to do one of our masterminds there at the event and had a great time there. And, Grant Cardone, whenever you've listened to me talk about books that I like and I recommend and things like that, I think one of the first books that anybody should be reading is The 10X Rule by Grant Cardone. And I suggest getting the Audible version of that because he is so funny and entertaining because he's actually the one reading the book. So sometimes he'll go through there and he's like, I don't even know what this word means. I don't know why the editor put that in there. I told him to take it out, those kind of things. It's just a very entertaining Audible version of his book, The 10X Rule. But I will say, most people either love him or hate him, and I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. I think he's very entertaining. I think a lot of things he says is really good and is really right on. And then there's some things that he says that I don't agree with. But I think for the most part, that book and the premise behind that book is really what's allowed me this year to really scale the way we have.
Well, if I can interrupt you for a second, you actually read that book at the beginning of 2017, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I remember that. And, we were at a different stage in life. We were in the middle of some other, I don't want to call them struggles, just different challenges that everybody has all the time. And that was I remember us talking about that. And that was kind of a shift in thinking in the way that we set goals and the way that we go about trying to accomplish things. So again, Dan said most people either love him or hate him, and I would definitely echo that. But I think that's a good book for everybody to read, no matter what group, love him or hate him, you're in.
Right. And I think any book that you read, you should always, read it with a critical mind and not to be always critical or down on a particular book or looking for the negatives, but, being able to have the ability to judge what is in line with your thinking and what is not. Obviously books allow us to change some of our thoughts and change some of our thinking, but, obviously when it goes against certain things or whatever, you have to be able to, use that and apply that. One of the things that, he did was he had that 10X Growth Con. It was his second one that he did. And he basically, same thing with this book. The first one he did, he had 3,500 and he's like, no, I'm going to get a big event. I'm going to get 9,000 people in a room. And of course, everybody is just telling him he's crazy. He's nuts. There's no way he's going to do it. And then I was there, Las Vegas, Nevada.
Mandalay?
Yes, it was the Mandalay Bay. That's the one that has the stadium, like bull fighting stadium, and underneath it or whatever. They do the world fights there and stuff like that and broadcast them live. The stadium seats more than 9,000, but because of the way the stage was set up, you couldn't put people behind the stage. He told us at the event that he wanted to really sell tickets behind the stage too because he sold out of the first 9,000 seats.
Wow.
But anyway, so he got a whole 9,000 people there, and it was a great event. And now this year, not this year, but next year in February, he's going to be doing another event, and he's stepping it up even more. So he's actually going to be getting 35,000 people in the Miami Dolphins Stadium. And he's got some really high-level speakers that are coming to that. And so I'm going to be joining him there, being part of that event. So looking forward to that. But
it wasn't actually him that was speaking when you sort of came to this epiphany, if you will, for last year.
No, it was a gentleman I had never even heard of before. His name was Ty Lopez, and I know some of you probably have heard of him before. And I had never followed him. And, whether I followed him or not, what he was saying was what really struck me. And, what he was mentioning is how Warren Buffett runs his business and runs his life. And one of the things that Warren Buffett does is he's considered the general in the business. So the general is never in the front lines. He's not going to go in front of the infantry and, be there to be vulnerable, because if you lose the general, then you lose your team, right? You lose the ability to have somebody to lead. And so he mentioned trying to get into a position of being the general. And I thought I was the general, because I'm the CEO and I'm running everything and I'm the big boy,
Well, in a way you kind of were, but not to the level that you needed to be.
Right. And correct. Yeah. So I was the general, and I had a lot of flexibility in being able to, manage my time how I needed and go away if I needed to, or go on vacation or events or training or whatever. And so there was definitely some flexibility with that. But I felt like, after listening to him speak about becoming the general, he mentioned about Warren Buffett and how he does things, and so he basically said that he basically gets, monthly reports and has, monthly phone calls with all of his CEOs of all the companies that he owns and runs and manages to make sure from a 30,000 foot view that everything's going well. And when things aren't going well, he finds another CEO, he gets out of there, because obviously if they can't run the business, he doesn't want him in there. And so he finds somebody that actually can run it. And so that's what I did is that was a Friday night. And so Friday night in February, I was there with my friend. We were both laying in separate beds in our hotel room, staring at the ceiling till like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, talking about some pretty deep, high level, stuff. And it was one of those conversations that, and I'm sure everybody's had them before, where you're just talking to somebody and this time goes by and you don't even realize what time it is. So by the time you're done talking, you look at the clock and you're like, good grief, it's like 3 o'clock in the morning. And that was the moment where I just had the epiphany that, I have a guy that is running the majority of my business that has been with me for 3.5 years, who's proven himself, who's helped us get where we are. And I decided to give him the opportunity to step up to the plate and get promoted from being just the chief operating officer to the chief executive officer. And it allowed me to be able to be promoted to the president. So, obviously I was the president / CEO, but I was able to step up or step out, if you will. So that next Monday, I decided to step away from the practice and promote him. And he was very agreeable to it. And of course, appreciated everything all the confidence that I had in him to be able to do that. And I have not stepped foot in the clinics since I left, other than like maybe on the weekend to go grab something from my office or out of the office or whatever. Now, like this office I'm in right now is an outside office, and it's a place that I do my other stuff that I'm working on now.
Yeah. So when we did that, you really didn't know what you were going to do. And I think that's where, someone like me, that's the challenge for me is that, well, can we not just wait to make this change until, we know what you're going to do? Are you just going to like not do anything? Which I know you better than that. I knew that was not going to be the case, but you really didn't know exactly what you were going to get into, just something different. And I will just say, if you have someone in your life that's like Dan, is an entrepreneur, a visionary, you have to be able to let them to do that, because you get to the point where, I think I can say this without putting words in your mouth and not sounding the wrong way, that you were a little bit bored. And by that, I mean that we had reached that goal that we had set for 5 clinics in 2 years, and they were all running, and they were running fairly well at the time. And now it was time to move on to something else, because that's what you do. You set a vision and you build it, and then it's time to move on to something else. And so, you came home and, well, I remember you told me on the phone, I can't wait to get home. We got to talk about some things. And, in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, great. What's going on? What are we going to be doing next? Some of the staff and I actually have an inside joke about when you go away to these conferences, that when you come back, it's just going to be more work for the rest of us because you always come back with big ideas or big plans. And sometimes we decide to go after those and sometimes we don't, but it usually means more work for the people around you, which is fine. But when we made that decision, we really didn't know what you were going to do. And so you're right. You didn't go back to the office. You kind of set up shop here at home, and that lasted for a few weeks. And then one of us probably looked at each other and went, okay, you really have to get an office now. And so in April, you had an office, but I don't know, we made lists. We batted around tons of ideas. Like, what are we going to do now? Not what have we, I have plenty to do. I have 4 kids. We have 4 kids, so I don't need anything else to do. What are you going to do? And we got to the point where you realize that, okay, I want to do some real estate. I want to do investing in particularly multifamily properties.
Yeah. I think it was about a week and a half of me sitting there doing absolutely nothing and being bored to death to be at the point of quote unquote retired, say I retired.
Well, that took a long time.
Yeah. I could say I retired by 35. But only did it for a week and a half because I was driving myself nuts as well as you. I remember you saying, you got to get out. You got to go do something,
Gotta do something.
And you're right. When I stepped out, I didn't really know for sure what I was going to do, but I felt like I was being pulled in a different direction. And I knew that there was something bigger and better and greater than what I was already doing that I was being led towards. Didn't know what it was, but I decided to just start to, get my creative juices flowing by taking people out to lunch or dinner or coffee or whatever, and just kind of seeing where they were and how things were going for them, and seeing if I can provide any value to other people. And in doing so, I met with lots of different people, went to lunch. The one trip that got me thinking back about multifamily was my trip that I took with my banker that we've been banking with for, over a decade in Greenville, South Carolina. So we're about an hour and a half from Greenville. So I drove an hour and a half to Greenville to have lunch with this person, with this banker, and, sitting down. And she's like, well, I know you've been doing a lot of research in real estate, and we've tried to do a couple of deals, and, things just haven't, panned out because of, various reasons. But I know you've really been interested in that. And I started thinking back, I'm like, that's actually a perfect thing for me to get into, because you're right. We made lists of, 10, 15, 20 different things of various opportunities and ways that I could spend my time, but which one was going to give me the growth and the expansion and the scale that I was really looking for. And there's a lot of them that I could have done, and I would have done really well with them, but they wouldn't have been doing as well. We wouldn't have been able to scale it as we have with the real estate stuff. And so I had been doing research in multifamily for about a year and a half prior to that, and had already bought a lot of books and some training and stuff like that, but never had the time because we were so focused on the practice. I never had the time to really focus on it. And of course, I always tell people, one of the main reasons why I like multifamily real estate is from the tax side of things, because, I was tired, and I know you always get tired of writing 6-figure checks to the government. So to be able to have an avenue where we can start to offset some of that income by, investing in real estate and getting that depreciation, but still being able to produce an income and making money off of those deals was very important to us. And it's one thing that, my friends in my own network that are high net worth individuals that have that same problem, they appreciate what we're doing, because now they're able to keep more of the hard-earned money that they're making. And even just yesterday, I was on a phone call with somebody that I hadn't talked to in probably at least 10 years. And he was a person that is a high net worth individual and is, not necessarily retired yet. So he's in his 60s, but, he saw some of the stuff because we were connected on LinkedIn. He saw some of the stuff that I was doing, the multifamily stuff. And he reached out to me and said, hey, what are you doing? So I called him and I talked to him about it. And he's like, well, I got a lot of cash sitting here. I got money sitting here. I'd love to be able to transfer some of this and put it in some of that. So put me on your investor list. Let me know when you have some deals available, because I would like to do that same thing. And so people are now seeing, what we're doing, and they're wanting to follow in the footsteps and take a passive approach. Obviously I'm active in it. I'm where my team is finding deals, closing on deals and bringing in these investors into the deals. And I'm as an investor, we're investing alongside each one of these deals. I think that's a very important key distinction, is that the person who's sponsoring the deal and put the deal together is actually investing alongside the investors. And they're not just, just using other people's money. So anyway, in that time when I had that meeting is when I decided that I really wanted to move forward with the real estate stuff. And like that weekend, I think, or the next weekend, I was on an airplane to a seminar to learn.
Yes, because you always take your time. Once we've decided, you always drag your feet in trying to get into the next thing.
Yeah, that's definitely tongue in cheek, I can tell. I dive very deep, as much as I can, very deep and wide in a topic and a business that I'm working with. And so hired a mentor, not at that seminar, but a different mentor. And I've been with this mentor since April 1st is when I officially started with this person. And, that's one of the reasons why we started this podcast, was to be able to build a authority platform to be able to invite, entrepreneurs and high net worth individuals from around the world to come and hear them and some of the struggles that they've been done in business. But it also gives me a reason to reach out to them and build that connection and build that relationship. And, also, again, have that excuse, if you will, to be able to continue a conversation with somebody that I meet, whether it be, at an event, or whether it be, at church or wherever it is. I can now invite them on and continue the conversation, so it doesn't feel like I'm just sitting here trying to ask for money. Because I don't think any of my investors have actually called up ever and said, hey, can you put money in my deal? It's more of an organic approach, and people come to us and seek us out because they see what we're doing.
Right. And I just have two other things to add here, because I think we're going to have to wrap it up here pretty quickly. We've sort of been shooting the breeze now for a little bit, but two things. One, I think it's important that people realize that when you took that first step to go to that real estate conference, I think it was in March, you knew that you wanted to do real estate, but you didn't really know what that would look like on December 21st, 2018, right? But you knew the direction, and so you took those steps. And since then, we've started the podcast, we've invested in deals, we've put together our own deals. And now, you have the Multifamily Investor Nation, which I think we're going to talk about on a future episode in a little bit more detail. But all that just kind of happened organically after you started taking those first steps. And I think it's important that people take action on the things that they want to do instead of, I tend to be the kind of person that I want to see the end from the beginning before I start, because I want it all planned out and have a plan for success. And I don't think there's anything wrong with planning. Obviously, that's important, but you don't always have to see the end and what that's going to look like when you start taking those steps of action. And sometimes that's the most important thing to building momentum towards your goals, is just starting to act. And so I think that's important. But also, just one thing that I was talking to somebody about last week, which, they were talking about what you're doing now. And basically they were asking me, well, doesn't that frustrate you? Because, why have you spent all these years doing this, and then you spent this money doing this, and now you're not even using that? And I think that's exactly the wrong way to look at it. And that is, all those things that we've done since, we were married in 2008 have brought us to this point where you are doing something that you really enjoy, and is on a big scale and is challenging and motivating and all those things. And could we have gotten here without all those other steps? Sure. But that was the path that God took us to this point. And I don't resent or regret any of those things that we did. And I don't think you do either.
No, I don't. And I think, like you just mentioned, is that, I think the Lord brings us down certain pathways because there's maybe there might be something different that he wants you to do, but he's preparing you. He's preparing you for that next step. And I think all along, if you look at our journey as entrepreneurs, each step of the way has allowed us to get stronger and better in a different area where we are now working now, which has allowed us to be strong where we are. Because, being able to do the multifamily real estate, I think one of the things that's a key to our success in this so far, because, we've closed on, a little over 1,300 doors. And one of the reasons why we've been so successful with this is because of our prior track record, in business in general. So for somebody who's, just right out of high school to try to do what we've done, I think they'd have a little bit of a harder time. Not to say that they can't do it, like you said. We could have still done it, but I think if you look at our track record in our past, I think it actually bodes well for what we're doing here in the multifamily because, yes, we, in the beginning of this year, I had never done any multifamily, so I knew it was going to be a little bit of an uphill battle to get some of our investors to invest with us because their question is, well, you've never done this before. And so for our first couple of deals, we partnered with other groups to be able to do these deals so that we can get that experience and so that our investors can start to trust and build that relationship with us. And as that continued to come to fruition, we started doing our own deals and putting together our own projects. And, when you start to talk about these large apartment complexes, you're really buying a business. That's what you're doing. So if you know about general business concepts, then business is business. You should be able to have a successful business in real estate as well.
Sure. There's, obviously there's different nuances to each area, but you're right. The general business ideas and principles are pretty much the same from one business to the next. And so I do think that's a very valid point. And I think about the different lessons that we've learned just in the different businesses and the different challenges and the different things that we've done. And, again, could we have learned those a different way? Sure, we could have, but that was the path that we took. And I think it's been good. And it's also been neat now to see how those past experiences have played into the successes that we've been able to have this year.
Well, and some of you might be thinking, well, what is all this multifamily stuff that you're talking about? Well, if you want to find out a little bit more about it, you can go to multifamilyinvestornation.com. And on that website is a place for you to join our email list for the Multifamily Investor Nation. We do weekly webinars, and we're pushing out a lot of content and educational material around multifamily to educate people about it. And then you can also, if you're interested in maybe going to our summit that we have coming up in January with the Multifamily Investor Nation group that I created a couple of months ago, we have over 2,300 members now, and we are doing a live online summit. We have over 55 speakers. We have 2 separate rooms, and we're going to have over 1,000 attendees at this event. And so you want to be a part of it. That's going to be something that's going to will really open your eyes to this whole world of multifamily investing. And you can learn how to, even if you don't want to do things actively, you want to make sure that you understand, maybe some of the nuances of the different pieces in multifamily, so that when you start to do some investing in it, whether it be active or passive, you can start to understand some of the lingo and the terminology and the different nuances of it. But you can go to multifamilyinvestornation.com/summit, or just go to mfinsummit.com and find out more information about that event. We'll be talking about it more in another couple of episodes as well, just to kind of give you some more insights into that. But just wanted to, plug that a little bit there too.
Yeah. So I guess as we wrap up today, just a reminder that, you have your episode tomorrow, Saturday. I have an episode on Sunday. And then we have a special episode together on Christmas, because we wanted to be able to say Merry Christmas on that day. And also we have a special gift that we want to give you when you listen to that episode. So tune in on Christmas Day for a very special episode from Dan and myself. And we'll be talking about a topic relevant to your business and the holidays on that day. And then we have a very special gift.
Yes, we do. So we have a Christmas gift for all of our listeners. So make sure you tune in. And I will tease a little bit that tomorrow's episode is going to be about self-directed IRAs and how you can get that in place and how you can get that set up with attorney Scott Smith with Royal Legal Solutions. So make sure you tune into that. If you have a self-directed IRA and you're curious about possibly using that to invest in some of these real estate projects that we're doing, definitely tune into that episode. And then the next Saturday, which will be December 29th, I would highly encourage you to listen to that episode as well, because on that episode, we actually interviewed, and I just interviewed him yesterday, Ryan Dice with Digital Marketer. So if you are familiar with any of the online marketing or the digital marketing space, Ryan Dice is one of the top online marketing gurus in the space. He has a summit that he does every year, which is actually a live in-person summit, and it's called the Traffic and Conversion Summit. So make sure you tune into that. I talked to him yesterday about some of the different ways that he's been able to scale, the digital marketer business that he has, digitalmarketer.com. And so make sure you tune into that. I actually saw him last week at his offices in Austin, Texas, because I was out there for a high-level mastermind that I'm a part of. But anyway, so make sure you tune into the next 2 Saturdays, because you will really enjoy those episodes.
All right. We will talk to you again on Tuesday then, Christmas Day.
Yep. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll talk to you on Christmas Day.
Thank you for listening to the Tough Decisions Network. Be sure to visit toughdecisions.net to gain access to show notes for this episode and to join our free weekly entrepreneur email, where we will send you news about the latest technology for your business, inspiring quotes, and the latest books for entrepreneurs. That's toughdecisions.net.